Hey everyone, welcome back to Deviance. Have you ever seen someone violate a norm and wonder why on earth they did that? I definitely have. That's why today we're going to go over some theories of deviance and try to apply them to real life situations. Throughout this lecture, we'll talk about the boarding schools in the United States and how they negatively impacted Native Americans. Then we'll explain what theory of deviance can explain that particular behavior. Next, we'll talk about the Anthony Flores and Anna Moore theft case, and then we'll discuss what theory of deviance can explain that incident. Within the past few decades, it has come to light that the United States had ordered tens of thousands of Native American children to attend boarding schools. This was a result of the Indian Civilization Act Fund of 1819 and the Peace Policy of 1869. The Indian Civilization Act Fund was initiated to quote-unquote civilize Native Americans and show them the ways of Western culture. The Peace Policy of 1869 was made by President Ulysses Grant to remove quote corrupt natives and replace them with Christian missionaries. He thought these missionaries were more superior morally speaking. One famous phrase that became prominent was "kill the Indian, save the man," as if being Indian was some sort of curse. In these boarding schools, the Native American children were essentially westernized. They were given new English names and punished if they spoke their native language or if they tried to engage in any of their cultural customs. These kids experienced a lot of physical and sexual abuse and received very harsh punishments. Some of those punishments included solitary confinement, flogging, whipping, slapping, forced manual labor, and starvation. These boarding schools were less schools and more like prisons. Many marked and unmarked mass grave sites have been found, and we still do not know the true number of how many children were lost. For those who lived and/or got out, when the children became adults, they were not equipped to be successful in the real world. They were not prepared and didn't have the knowledge necessary to join the workforce. This tragedy and trauma had many lasting mental and physical side effects on the Native American population. They have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. They have lower self-esteem and experience a loss of identity and connection to their culture. And additionally, they're more likely to have diabetes and cancer. So why would Americans try to eradicate Native people's culture and their rights? There are many theories of deviance explained in Chapter 2 of the book that could be applied here. Now, you may have noticed that the time period in which this took place coincides with the time when black codes and Jim Crow laws were established. So there was a lot of discrimination against people of different races, ethnicities, and cultures at the time. The Civil Rights Act that prevented discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin was not put into law until 1964, and women didn't even get the right to vote until 1920. Given all this information, I think the best theory to describe the treatment of Native Americans by the US government is the learning theory. The learning theory says that deviant behavior is learned by observing others. We are taught to be deviant. So generations upon generations of people were taught that those of different races and ethnicities were lesser than white folks and to be treated as such. As we grow up, we are taught by friends and family the way of the world. If they teach you to go against norms by treating people badly, it's possible you could do the same. I think that's what happened here. The belief that people who were different were bad was so widespread that it led to the abuse and maltreatment of many. Now we'll go over another example of deviance. And this one is a sad story about how a couple took advantage of a rich but mentally ill and vulnerable man. The couple in question is Anthony Flores and Anna Moore. Flores was a hairstylist and Moore was a singer and actress, but her career was having a hard time taking off. The two ran a yoga studio together in California. Dr. Mark Sawish was an ophthalmologist or an eye surgeon who had become very successful. However, he dealt with many mental health issues such as depression, bipolar disorder, and suicidality. He was in and out of mental facilities and had to be hospitalized a lot as well. Flores and Moore met Sawish at an ice cream parlor and befriended him. It wasn't too soon after that until they moved into his home to take care of him. As time passed, the couple took more control over this man's finances. Flores appointed himself to be Sawish's power of attorney, which allowed him to have control over Sawish's bank accounts. Flores continued transferring massive amounts of money into his own accounts. Flores and Moore even went so far as to give Sawish drugs like marijuana and LSD and convinced him it would help with his mental illness. It actually made him worse off. Sawish died early at age 57 in 2018. Ketamine and alcohol were found in his system when he was assessed. Flores and Moore hid information from Sawish's family, and this caused Sawish's mother and sister to file a lawsuit. This couple ended up being arrested and found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and theft. And to think this poor doctor believed that these were his friends. So why will Flores and Moore do this? I'm sure you could think of a couple different reasons. Chapter 2 went over many theories of deviance. I think the theory that works best to explain Flores and Moore's behavior here is Merton's strain theory. Merton's strain theory is about achieving cultural goals through legitimate means. However, if legitimate means aren't available, there is a social strain present. Do you remember how I said Flores was a hairstylist and Moore was an actress? However, Moore's career wasn't taking off the way she wanted, and the couple owned a yoga studio together, so it seems like they were doing all they could to get by financially. Plus, they lived in California, which is a pretty expensive state to live in. However, when they met Dr. Sawish, their luck changed. They engaged in what Merton would call innovation. They accepted the cultural goal of financial success, but rejected the established legitimate means to get there. This led them to engage in the deviant behaviors of committing fraud and theft. So over this lecture, we learned about boarding schools and their attempt to erase Native American language, culture, and customs. We discussed how the learning theory can explain their maltreatment. We also learned about how Anthony Flores and Anna Moore took advantage of mentally ill Dr. Sawish. And we discussed that Merton's strain theory can be applied to that situation. Remember, as you go about every day, try to notice deviances you see in the world, and try to see what theories you could apply to find out why that deviance is occurring. Anyway, thanks for watching.